Hello people, so this is Rebel Masters. This week recording orchestrals ensembles. Come on, check it out. So firstly, I'm going to tell you why I love to listen to classical music and where did I learn to record orchestral ensembles. Secondly, I'm going to show you the techniques we use when recording these ensembles and what is the most important things to take into account when doing this. Thirdly, the radio tune of this week is an orchestral ensemble with the choir in it. It's very powerful, very meaningful, very beautiful. Go check it out. Next, the second of a beat of this week is also an orchestra song, but from an anime movie. Can you guess the song? So people, this is Rebel Masters, and I hope that by the end of this video you have learned something useful. So stick around! Hey people, so growing up in a family where my father was a music lover, he used to have a lot of recordings and a lot of CDs around everywhere. He had from the Beatles to Diomedes Diaz to orchestral music or classical music. Within those classical music, there was a bunch of, you can see they're very unique in their way of layering their CDs, and you can see I'm going to show you this type of CDs. So he had a lot of composers. He had Mozart, he had Bach, he had Schubert, Tchaikovsky, a lot of them. So I grew up in that environment where music was kind of a priority. And listening to these CDs, especially the classical music, it helps you understand that it had a different sound. I wasn't really sure what type of sound it was, but I know it was different. So later on, when I went to university, when I went for the second time to actually become a music producer, professional music producer, I had a teacher back there, a professor, who on the weekends, he used to go record these orchestral ensembles. Sometimes they were big, sometimes they were not as big, but they were still more than 3 or 4 instruments of an orchestra. And he always used to ask in class, who wants to go help me? And I was always like, me, and another friend of mine. We used to go on the weekends. We go to these venues with these big, huge stages, even though sometimes there were small ensembles. So he taught us how to record this type of ensembles, this type of group of instruments. And there were a couple of things he said that really stuck in me, and then I understood why those classical songs or classical music heard the way it did, because he said the three most important things that should be aware about when recording an ensemble, an orchestral ensemble, is first and most important is the relationship of the instruments within the space they're at, right? So it's not just recording your instrument, it's recording how it sounds within that space. So that's why when you go into the VSTs of orchestras or violins or any specific orchestra instrument, you see you can choose the reverb, like if it's hall, grand hall, church, like these big places, because they know when they're making those VSTs that is the instrument in relationship of the big place or of any place. Secondly, he always said, be careful with the type of instrument. If you have small ensembles, you can also direct microphones to each instrument, but remember, each instrument has its own sweet spot, so be careful with that. Go ask the player to play a little bit, go around the player and find the sweet spot of the instrument. Where is the sweet spot? For example, if you're gonna record violins, when they use the instrument, it's go like this, right? So the sweet spot is on top of them. Just an example. Another example is the clarinet. Some clarinets, the sweet spot is right here, right? Where the air, not where they're flowing in, but below of it, there's a little hole where the air comes out. This is one of the sweet spots of the clarinet. For example, if you're recording a French horn, you know it goes like that, but the placement where the audio comes out is right on the back, so you gotta be careful with all of those things. So like I was saying before, my microphone was falling down. So the second thing is be aware of the sweet spot of the instrument, because it might not be where you think it is. And thirdly, if you're an engineer that who plays an instrument, a lot of this, if they're big ensembles and they're professional, they're aware of their pitch, of their tones, right? But some of these were built on the spot, and a lot of them were students who were like planning to become professional players for orchestra. So if you're an engineer who has a good ear, or you're supposed to have a good ear, and you're recording these ensembles, be aware of the pitch, because sometimes they were out of pitch. So with all respect to the music and to the people who are actually creating these ensembles, you tell them, hey guys, be careful, you're out of pitch, the violin is out of pitch, or you gotta be careful with that. But have a good ear, so if something is going wrong, you can actually have a voice and say, hey, be careful with this, be careful with that. So those were the three main things that or general things that he told us to be aware of, which I think is very important. So now what I'm going to show you is how to record some of these ensembles and the way we used to do it, so that it helps you if you ever have a chance to do it. So let's go check it out. Hey people, so I'm gonna show you how we place the mics back then, so it might help you. Remember, there's many ways and many things you can find out there on the web. So this is just what we did, and I'm gonna tell you the reasons why we did it. So if you look into the piano, the image I'm showing you right now, if you want a more pop or modern approach to recording the piano, you go and you place your mics inside of the piano, below the lid, on an A-B arrangement, right? Once towards the low ends and once towards the high ends, as you can see in the image. If you want a more classical approach of just the piano, because remember, one of the most important things is the instruments in relationship of the space they're at. So you can place your mics right next to the curve of the piano with the lid open. Also A-B, a little bit more separate this time, but keep in mind, one of the mics is directed towards the low strings and the other mic is directed towards the high strings. So this will give you a more classical approach, a more classical sound, because it's going to capture the piano and it's also going to capture the space, more of the space where it's at, right? But what we did, I remember recording the piano, was more like we use both. Of course, you got to be careful of your faces because you can start canceling it. But that's why we used to do tests before actually recording. So we use both methods, one on top of the strings below the lid, and the other two right next in the curve, so that it will capture the piano as well as the space that it was in. So you can try them both. Using this type of techniques will give you more chances when mixing to prioritize whatever you want in this case, or whatever you want to make it sound. For example, if it's a song that is very soft and the dynamics are not very high or very big, you can use the ambience, the mics from the back. But if you ever need like a little bit of more hit on those piano chords, then you just bring up the mics that are in front of them. You can play with that. Remember, it always depends on what the producers are looking for and how you can enhance better. But in my opinion, it's better to have a little bit more of opportunities to get to that spot where they want their songs to be. So many times we had ensembles that were not that big. So what we used to do is we used to put the ensemble like on the stage in a U position, you can call it like that. We used to allocate in the stage 4 mics right in front of the stage, open AB, so that it will capture the instruments. Then we will place other 2 mics on the edge of the stage, so we'll get more of the stage itself. But then on the back of the audience, as you can see in the image, right on each extremity or each side of the venue, we used to put mics over there. And if we have a little bit more of a budget, we used to place also a mic in the center on the back of the venue, so we can capture all the space where they were at. Of course, the idea is to have as much budget as you can, but sometimes you can't. So you gotta compensate where do you place your mics. But this is a broad idea of what we used to do. Back then we had a lot of mics, so apart from having just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mics, we also used to put 1 mic for each instrument because it wasn't a big ensemble. So remember, find the sweet spot of the instrument and place your mic where it's needed. Sometimes these ensembles also came with the piano. So as you can see in the image, the piano was placed up above of or right on the back of the stage. And you can put the more modern approach with those 2 mics on top of below the lid, on top of the strings. And also, if you have more mics, you can also put them right next to the curve, like I showed you in the example before. So these are options that you could do for recording the instruments within an orchestra. Now people, if you ever have the opportunity to record a huge ensemble and a professional ensemble of orchestra, this is how most of professional recorders do, or even more, like more mics, right? So remember, each group of or family of instruments has their own placements within the stage. So as you can see in the image, I allocated mics with the first violin, the second violins, the violas, and what comes before, and the cellos. But the circles that you see on top of the image are also mics, but those mics are placed on top of the orchestra. So we'll get the front side for the instruments that push their sound up front, and we'll get also the recording up above for the instruments that their sound goes upwards in this case, right? So apart from that, also remember the 2 mics on the stage, extreme from each other, like really separately from each other, and the ones on the public or where the people are seated, so we can grab the whole arena or the whole venue, so we can keep that relationship of the instruments within this space. Also, something that I didn't put in the image, like if you also have a choir, normally or usually the choir goes right back on the back of all the instruments, and those instruments or those choirs are also arranged within group of families of tones. So put a mic that can capture one or several mics that can capture the whole chorus, and some of the times they also use hanging mics for the choir. Sorry, for the choirs. So this is the approach that I would do within a budget, and that is not too low but not too high. This is what you could do. So people, my last recommendation, or the last thing we used to do when recording orchestral instruments, but this time is within studio. So as you can see, I have 3 instruments here, and they all have different sweet spots, so be careful of that. So what we used to do is we used to place a mic in front of them, but this mic we used to put it omnidirectional, because most or a lot of the players, the musicians that used to play this instrument, they tend to move a lot. Even though you put on an X on the floor where they have to stand, they're musicians, they feel the music, and you can't ask them to stay still. So our recommendation is to put one microphone in front of them with an omnidirectional, so we'll capture anything that he moves on, and also put omni on the back, on the top, so that it captures the player, and also, even though it's a studio, the space that he's at, always be careful of your faces. Always test before recording your final track and see what works for you. Remember, these are things that we used to do back then, and it's all about the ear. If your ear is trained, meaning if you have listened a lot of music of this type, in this case orchestral music, then you have an idea of what you want to capture. So go with it, go with your instincts, remember what you listen, and be careful of your faces. Always be aware of your player, how he moves, and the sweet spot of the instrument, so you can capture or make the best capture of the recording. So this is what we used to do back then. I hope it helps you very much, and see you in the next one. Hey people, so the radio tune of this week, since we're talking about orchestral music and how to record it, I think it was appropriate to show you a song that I really like, that I don't think most of the people know about it. I mean, the people that are in the orchestral industry, you can call it that, of course they know about it. But us who work in everything that there's out there, this song, it's a beautiful song. It's a Brahms song. The name is very complicated. I'm gonna put it right here. Brahms and this is just Requiem, opening 45, first part, right? What I love about this song is that it starts very soft, very hopefulness, and then they have this big choir that just hits you in the guts. It's right here, bam, and then the music turns more melancholic and more profound, and it just starts making the choir just makes the song bigger and more powerful and more meaningful, and the recording is beautiful and is impeccable. So my recommendation of this week is Brahms and Dutch Requiem, opening 45, part 1. I'm going to put here so you can follow them, or you can go check it out. This is the recommendation, the radio tune of this week, so go check it out. Hey people, so this is 1 second of a beat, where I'll show you 1 second of a song and you tell me which song it is. This week, classical music from an anime movie. Can you guess the song? Here we go. 3, 2. What is it? Put it in the comments. See you on the next one. Hey people, so this is Rebel Masters, where we talk about 20 years in making music. We talk about mixing sessions, we talk about recording sessions, we talk about productions and the industry and people you meet. If you want your music to be heard, well, this is the place, guys. Today we talked about orchestra, how to record orchestra. If you know something about it, put it in the comments, guys. Well, how do you do it? How do you approach it? Guys, this space is for you, for us, you can say growing musicians, engineers, do-it-yourself music producers. So if you have something to show, this is the place. Smash that subscribe button and see you on the next one.